Okay, so after taking a break, I feel a little bit better, which is good. Um, Still kind of down in general, but before we hop in, I just wanted to point out that I did buy a new plush. It is a Gryffindor lion plush, specifically because this plush needed a friend. And even though there's lots of friends back here, uh, I felt like they needed, I don't know, just another friend of theirs because the strawberry plush has been spending a lot of time with me, and this guy has been spending a lot of time back there. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to explain that for a sec. I'm gonna pause so I can put them back, and then we'll hop right in. All right. And also, I was too low energy and low mood last video to point out that once again we have our corgi with the fez because fezzes are cool, and yeah, I didn't want that to go unregarded again. So there we are. So let me readjust my chair. I am, however, being extra foolish and not testing to see if this video's audio is going to work. So I'm going to run on blind faith that it will, which is a terrible idea, but oh well. That's what I got to do. It's the consequence of that action. And now that we're nearly 2 minutes in, I can actually get going, saying that it is now on 26. Professor Piper held out her arms when Kath walked in. Kath, you're back. I wish I could say that I knew you would be, but I wasn't sure. I was hoping. Kath was back. She came to tell Professor Piper that she'd made up her mind. Again, she wasn't going to write this story. She had enough to write now and enough to worry about. The project was leftover crappiness from first semester. Just thinking about it made Kath's mouth taste like failure, like plagiarism and stupid Nick stealing her best lines. Kath wanted to put it behind her, but once Kath was standing in Professor Piper's office and Professor Piper was blue fairy smiling at her, Kath couldn't say it out loud. This was so obviously about me needing a mother figure, she thought, disgusted with herself. I wonder if I'm going to get swoony around middle-aged women until I am one. It was really kind of you to offer me a second chance, Kath said, following the professor's gestures to sit down. This is when she was supposed to say, but I'm gonna have to say no. Instead, she said, I guess I'd be an idiot not to take it. Professor Piper beamed at her. She leaned forward with an elbow on the desktop, resting her cheek against her fist like she was posing for a senior picture. So, she said, in, do you have an idea in mind for your story? No, Kath squeezed her fists shut and rubbed them into her thighs. Every time I try to come up with something, I just feel empty. Professor Piper nodded. You need something. You, you, you said something last time that I've been thinking about. You said that you didn't want to build your own world. Kath looked up. Yes, exactly. I don't have brave new worlds inside of me begging to get out. I don't want to start from nothing like that. But Kath, most writers don't. Most of us aren't Gemma T. Leslie. She waved her hand around the office. We write about the worlds we already know. I've written 4 books, and they all take place within 120 miles of my hometown. Most of them are about things that happened in my real life. But you write historical novels. The professor nodded. I take something that happened to me in 1983, and I make it happen to somebody else in 1943. I pick my life apart that way. I try to understand it better by writing straight through it. So everything in your books is true? The professor tilted her head and hummed. Yes, and no. Everything starts with a little truth. Then I spin my webs around it. Sometimes I spin completely away from it. But the point is, I don't start with nothing. I've never written anything that isn't magical, Cass said. You still can, if that's what you want, but you don't have to start at the molecular level, with some sort of big bang in your head. Kath pressed her nails into her palms. Maybe for this story, Professor Piper said delicately, you could start with something real, with with one day from your life, something that that confused or intrigued you, something you want to explore. Start there and see what happens. You can keep it true, or you can let it turn into something else. You can add magic, but give yourself a starting point. Kath nodded, more because she was ready to leave than because she'd processed everything the professor was saying. I want to meet again, Professor Piper said. In a few weeks, let's get back together and talk about where you are. Kath agreed and hurried toward the door, hoping she wouldn't seem rude. A few weeks. Sure, like a few weeks will fix the hole in my head. She pushed her way through a mob of gaudy English majors, then escaped out into the snow. Levi wouldn't put her laundry hamper down. Or, yeah, Levi wouldn't put her laundry hamper down. I can carry it, Cass said. Her head was in Professor Piper's office. She wasn't in the mood for, for Levi, for the constant, good-natured game of him. If Levi were a dog, he'd be a golden retriever. If he were a game, he'd be ping pong. Incessant and bouncing and light. Kath didn't feel like playing. I've got this, he said. You get the door. No, seriously, she said. I can carry it. Levi was all smiles and fond glances. Sweetheart, get the door. I've got this. Kath pressed her fingertips into her temples. Did you just call me sweetheart? He grinned. It just came out. It felt good. Sweetheart? Would you prefer honey? That reminds me of my mom. What about baby? No, love boat. Kitten? Rubber duck? He paused. You know what? I'm sticking with sweetheart. I don't even know where to start, Kath said. Start with the door. Levi, I can carry my own gross, dirty laundry. Kath, I'm not going to let you. There's no letting. It's my laundry. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't need you to carry things for me. I have two functioning arms. That's not the point, he said. What kind of creep would I be if I let my girl carry something heavy while I walked along swinging my arms? Your girl? That's that kind of That kind, the kind that respects my wishes, she said, and my strength and my arms. Levi grinned some more because he wasn't taking her seriously. I have a lot of respect for your arms. I like how they're attached to the rest of you. You're making me feel fragile and limp. Give me the laundry. She reached for it. He stepped back. Catherine, I know you're capable of carrying this, but I'm not capable of letting you. I literally couldn't walk next to you empty-handed. It's nothing personal. I'd do this for anyone with two X chromosomes. Even worse. Why? Why? Why is that worse? That I'm respectful to women? It's not respectful. It's undermining. Respect our strengths. I do. His hair fell in his eyes and he tried to blow it away. Being chivalrous is respectful. Women have been oppressed and persecuted since the beginning of time. If I can make their lives easier with my superior upper body strength, I'm going to. At every opportunity. Superior? Yes, superior. Do you want to arm wrestle? I don't need superior upper body strength to carry my own dirty laundry. She put her fingers on the handles, trying to push aside. You're deliberately missing the point, he said. No, that's you. Your face is flushed. Did you know that? Well, she said, I'm frustrated. Don't make me angry, kiss you. Give me the laundry. Tempers rising, faces flushed. This is how it happens. That made Kath laugh, and that was irritating too. She used most of her inferior upper body strength to shove the hamper into his chest. Levi pushed it back gently, but didn't let go. Let's fight about this next time I try to do something nice for you, okay? She looked up at his eyes. The way he looked back at her made her feel wide open, like every thought must be closed captioned on her face. She let go of the hamper and picked up her laptop bag, opening the door. Finally, he said, my triceps are killing me. This was the coldest, snowiest winter Kath could remember. It was the middle of March already, technically spring, but it felt like January. Kath put on her snow boots every morning without thinking about it. She had gotten used to the snow, to being a pedestrian in the snow, that she hadn't even thought to check the weather today. She hadn't thought about road conditions or visibility or the fact that maybe this wasn't the best afternoon for Levi to drive her home. She was thinking about it now. It felt like they were the only car on the interstate. They couldn't see the sun. They couldn't see the road. Every 10 minutes or so, red taillights would emerge out of the static ahead of them, and Levi would ease onto the brakes. He stopped talking almost an hour ago. His mouth is straight. He was squinting at the windshield like he needed glasses. We should go back, Kath whispered. Yeah, he said, rubbing his mouth with the back of his hand, then clenching his fist around the gear shift. But I think it might be easier now to keep going. It's worse behind us. We'd beat it to Omaha. I thought we'd beat it to Omaha. There was a metallic ringing as a car passed them on the left. What's that noise? She asked. Tire chains. Levi didn't sound scared, but he was being so awfully quiet. I'm sorry, she said. I wasn't thinking about the weather. My fault, he said, sparing a second smile at her. I didn't want to let you down. Think think I'll feel worse if I actually kill you. That would not be chivalrous. Levi smiled again. She reached out to the gear shift and touched his hand, running her fingers along his, then pulling them away. They were they were quiet again for a few minutes, maybe not that long. It was hard to judge time with everything so tense and gray. What are you thinking about? Levi asked. Nothing. Not nothing. You've seemed thinky and weird ever since I got to your room. Is this about me meeting your dad? No, Cass said. I kind of forgot about that. More quiet. What then? Just something that happened with a professor. I can tell you when we're not in mortal peril. Levi felt the Levi felt on the seat for her hand, so she gave it to him. He clutched it. You're not in mortal peril. He moved his hand back to the gear shift. Maybe stranded in a ditch for a few hours peril. Tell me, I can't really talk right now, but I can listen. I'd like to listen. Kath turned away from the window and faced him. It was nice to look at Levi when he couldn't look back. She liked his profile. It was very flat. A straight line from his long forehead into his longish nose. His nose veered out a bit at the tip, but not much, and another straight line from his nose to his chin. His chin went soft sometimes when he smiled or when he was feigning surprise, but it was never quite mushed away. She was going to kiss him there some day, right at the edge of his jaw where his chin was most vulnerable. What happened in class? He asked. After class, I went, well, okay, so you know how last semester I was taking fiction writing? Yeah. Well, I didn't turn in my final project. I was supposed to write a short story, and I didn't. What? His chin tucked back in surprise. Why? Lots of reasons. This this was more complicated than Kath thought. She didn't want to tell Levi how unhappy she'd been last semester, how she hadn't wanted to come back to school, how she hadn't wanted to see him. She didn't want him to think he had that much power over her. I didn't want to write it, she said. I mean, there's more to it than that, but mostly I didn't want to. I had writer's block and my dad, and I didn't come back to school finals week after he had his breakdown. I didn't know that. Well, it's true. So I decided not to finish my final project, but my fiction writing professor didn't turn in my grade. She wants to give me a second chance. She said I could write the story this semester, and I sort of said that I would. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's not awesome. No, it is. Just it was nice to have it behind me. I feel like I was through with the whole idea, fiction writing. You write fiction all the time. I write fan fiction. Don't be tricky with me right now. I'm driving through a blizzard. A car materialized ahead of them and Levi's face tensed. Kath waited until he relaxed again. I don't want to make up my own characters, my own world. I don't have that inside me. Neither of them spoke. They were moving so slowly. Something caught Kath's eye through Levi's window. A semi-truck had jackknifed in the median. She took a stuttering breath and Levi found her hand again. Only 15 miles, he said. Does he need help? There was a state patrol car. I didn't see it. I'm so sorry about this, Levi said. Stop, she said. You didn't make it snow. Your dad's gonna hate me. She raised his hand to her mouth and kissed his knuckles. His forehead wrinkled, almost like it hurt. Kath listened to the windshield wipers and watched the front window for whatever was coming next. Are you sure? Levi asked after a few miles. About the fiction writing? Are you sure you don't have that inside you? You're you're fathomless when it comes to Simon and Baz. They're different. They already exist. I just move them around. He nodded. Maybe you're like Frank Sinatra. He didn't write his own songs, but he was a genius interpreter. I hate Frank Sinatra. Come on, nobody hates Frank Sinatra. He treated women like things. Okay. Levi adjusted himself in the seat, shaking his neck out. Not Frank Sinatra, then. Aretha Franklin. Black Diva. Roy Acuff? Who? Levi smiled and made Kath kiss his fingers again. He gave her a quick questioning look. The point is, he said softly, something about the storm that made them both. Something about the storm made them both talk softly. There are different kinds of talent. Maybe your talent is in interpretation. Maybe you're a stylist, and you think that counts. Tim Burton didn't come up with Batman. Peter Jackson didn't write Lord of the Rings. In the right light, you are such a nerd. His smile opened up. The truck hit a slick spot, and he pulled out his hand, but the smile lingered. A coffee pot shaped water tower slowly moved past his window. They were on the edge of town now. There were more cars. There were more cars here on the road and in the ditches. You still have to write that story, Levi said. Why? To bring your grade up. Don't you need to keep your GPA up for your scholarship? She'd only just told him about the scholarship a few nights ago. I'm dating a genius, he said, and a scholar. Of course she wanted to keep her GPA up. Yeah. So write the story. It doesn't have to be great. You don't have to be Ernest Hemingway. You're lucky you're getting a second chance. Kath sighed. Yeah. I just I don't know. I don't know where you live, he said. You're gonna have to give me instructions. Just be careful, Kath said, leaning quickly to kiss his smooth cheek. You can't shave your head. You'll look mental. I look worse than mental with this hair. I look evil. There's no such thing as evil hair, Simon giggled. They were lying on the floor of the library between two rows of shelves, Baz on his back. Simon propped up on one shoulder. Look at me, Baz said, pushing his chin length hair from his forehead. Every famous vampire has a widow's peak like this. I'm cliche. It's like I went to the barber and asked for a Dracula. Simon was laughing so hard he nearly fell forward onto Baz. Baz shoved him up with his free hand. I mean, honestly, Baz said, still holding back his hair, trying to keep a straight face. It's like an arrow on my face. This way to the vampire. Simon swatted Baz's hand away and kissed the point of his hairline as gently as he could. I like your hair, Simon said against Baz's forehead. Really, really. From Carry On, Simon posted 2012 by fanfics.net author Magicath. On that note, I will say that I myself am very overdue for a haircut, but due to yeah, basically I've been really lazy with it, and it's just too late at this point. I don't like it to be this long. I actually like it to be kind of like ear length long, kind of a thing, where it's like still a similar sort of style, where like what's it called? Like where I would probably have it more wave. Nah, not emo. This looks like emo band. It's hard to explain. I'd have to pull up a picture that I like, and I don't really have one. In this light, it does not look terrible from like this angle, but in general, I do not like this length. And I've been meaning to say this for like like at the start or end of many videos. You know what? A topic about hair allowed me to talk about it. So there, I got to say it. I don't like the way it looks right now. And I am sorry. I am sorry to me, and I'm sorry to anybody else who also doesn't like it. And if you do like it, thank you, because you're liking it for both of us. That is all I wanted to say in regards to my hair before I start the next chapter. And yeah, we're only 19 minutes in. I'm feeling pretty good. As long as the next one isn't a super long one, maybe we can knock out 2 chapters or 2 more chapters before having to take another break. 27. When they pulled crunchily into Kath's driveway, Kath exhaled completely for the first time in 2 hours. Levi leaned back and let his head fall against the seat. He opened and closed his hands, stretching his fingers. Let's never do that again, he said. Kath unbuckled her seatbelt and slid towards him, pushing her arms around his shoulders. Levi smiled so wide she wished it hadn't taken an adrenaline rush for her to feel like she could hug him like this. His arms moved around her waist, and she held him tightly, her face in his coat. Levi's mouth was close to her ear. You shouldn't reward me for endangering your life, you know. Think of the precedent you're setting. Keth held him even tighter. He was good. He was good, and she didn't want to lose him. Not that she felt like he was going to lose him on the interstate, just in general. In general, she didn't want to lose him. I wouldn't have thought twice about driving. I wouldn't have thought twice of driving through this back home, he said quietly, by myself. But I shouldn't have done this with you. I'm sorry. She shook her head. The street was silent, and the cab of the truck was dark gray and white bright. And after a few minutes, Levi's hand trailed up her back again, back and down again. Cather, he whispered, I really like you. When they got out of the truck, the windshield was covered with snow. Levi carried her laundry. Levi carried her laundry. Kath let him. He was nervous about meeting her dad. She was nervous about her dad. Period. She'd talked to him every day since Christmas break, and she'd been home to visit. He seemed like he was doing fine, but you never knew with him. When Kath opened the door, he was right there in the living room. There were papers everywhere, onion skin taped to the curtains and walls, and his ideas were sorted into buckets. And her dad was sitting on the coffee table, chewing on the end of a Sharpie. Kath, he said, smiling. Hey, is it Kath time already? He looked at the windows, and then down at her wrist. He wasn't wearing a watch. Then he saw Levi and stopped. He took his glasses off and his head and put them on, standing. Dad, this is Levi. He gave me a ride. That hadn't come out right. Kath tried again. He's, Levi. Levi held out his hand. Mr. Avery, nice to meet you. He was drawling. Maybe his accent was a nervous tick. It's nice to meet you, her dad said. And then, and, her dad said, and then, Levi, I'm really sorry about taking Cather out in this weather, Levi said. I didn't realize how bad it was. Nothing registered on her dad's face. He looked down toward the windows. Is it messy out? I guess I haven't been paying attention. Levi's face went nearly blank. He smiled politely. Her dad looked at Kath and remembered that he was going to hug her. Are you hungry? He said. Is it dinner time? Been in I've been in Frankenfog all day. Did you guys get the Frankenbeans account? She asked. Still pitching, eternally pitching. So, Levi, he said, are you staying for dinner? Oh, uh, Levi said. Thank you, sir, but I better get back while there's still some light. Catherine wheeled around. Are you kidding me? You're not driving back to Lincoln in this. I'll be fine, he said. Four-wheel drive, snow tires, cell phone. No, Cass said harshly. Don't be an idiot. We're lucky that we got here okay. You're not going back. Levi bit his lips and raised his eyebrows helplessly. Her dad walked past them to the door. Jesus, he said from the porch. She's right, Levi. I'm just gonna keep saying your name until I remember it. Is that okay? Yes, sir. Kath pulled on Levi's sleeve. You're staying, all right? He licked his bottom lip nervously. She wasn't used to seeing him nervous. Yes, ma'am, he whispered. Okay, her dad said, walking back into the living room. Dinner. He still looked like he was in a Franken fog. I got it, Cass said. You keep working. You look like you're onto something. He smiled at her gratefully. Thanks, honey. Just give me another half hour to sort through this. He turned back to his concepts. Levi, take off your coat. Kath started taking off her boots and hung her coat on the hook. She pulled on Levi's sleeve again. Take off your coat. He did. Come on, she said. Walking into the kitchen, everything seemed in order. She glanced into her dad's room and into the bathroom. No toothpaste poetry. I'm sorry, Levi said when he got into the kitchen. Shut up, she said. You're making me nervous. I should go. Not as nervous as I'd be if you were driving home in a blizzard. Jesus, sit down. It's okay, okay? He smiled. He smiled at Levi. Okay. And sat down on one of the stools. It's weird to see you here, she said, like worlds colliding. Levi ran his fingers through his hair, shaking out bits of snow. Your dad seems unfazed. He's used to guys being around. Levi cocked an eyebrow. Really? My sister, Cass said, feeling her cheeks warm. She opened the refrigerator. Her grandmother obviously been here. All her dad's crusty condiment bottles were gone, and there were Tupperware containers labeled with grease pencil, plus fresh milk and eggs and yogurt. She opened the freezer. Healthy choice meals, probably the same healthy choice meals as last time Kath was home. She looked over at Levi. How do you feel about eggs? Awesome, he smiled. I feel awesome about eggs. One of the Tupperware containers had Italian sausage with red peppers. Kath emptied it into a pan and decided to make poached eggs, just to show off. There was bread for toast and butter. This wouldn't be half bad. Can I help you? Levi asked. No, I've got this. She glanced over her shoulder at him and then smiled back down at the stove. Let me do something for you for once. Okay, he said. What's your dad doing here? She told him. She told him about fucking. She told him about fucking Kelly and ravioli and the time they'd gone to the Grand Canyon on a family vacation, and their dad had sat in the rental car with a notebook and a Sharpie. Her dad had worked a lot of agricultural clients over the years, this being Nebraska, and Levi actually recognized a line he'd written for a fertilizer. Bigger yields, brighter fields. Trust next year to spurt. That sounds grossly inappropriate. Why would why would a company be okay with that? I hope Spurt's not the name of the company. I feel really bad if that is. Oh my god. Anyway, sorry to break the flow. Yeah, it was just one of those like, damn. All right. Your dad's a madman, he said. Kath laughed and Levi looked sheepish. That's not what I meant. They ate at the dining room table, and by the middle of dinner, Kath felt like maybe she didn't have to be so nervous. Levi had relaxed into a slightly more polite version of his usual everyone must love me self, and her dad just seemed happy that Kath was home. Her eggs were perfect. The only sour note was when her dad asked about Red. Kath shrugged and changed the subject. He didn't seem to notice. He was a little twitchy and tappy tonight, a little distant, but Kath decided he was just lost in work. His color was good, and he told her he'd been jogging every morning. Every once in a while, he seemed to surface enough to give Levi an appraising look. After dinner, Levi insisted on clearing the table and going and doing the dishes. As soon as he was in the kitchen, her dad leaned over. Is that your boyfriend in there? Kath rolled her eyes, but she nodded. For how long? A month. Kath said, sort of longer. I don't know. How old is he? 21. He looks older. It's the hair. Her dad nodded. He seems nice. He's the nicest, Kath said as sincerely as she could, wanting him to believe her. He's a good guy, I swear. I don't know how you'd broken up with Abel. Once the dishes were done, Kath dried. Uh, she and Kath dried. She and Levi were going to watch a movie, but her dad winced when she started moving his papers off the couch. Do you guys mind watching TV upstairs? I promise, Kath. I'm all ears tomorrow. I'm just. Sure, she said. Not too late, okay? He smiled, but was already turning back to his notebook. Kath looked at Levi and motioned her towards the stairs. She felt him on the steps behind her, her stomach tightening all the way. When they got to the top, Levi touched the back of her arm and stepped away from him into her bedroom. It looked like a kid's room now. Yeah. It looked like a kid's room now that she was imagining it through his eyes. It was big, a half story with a slanted roof, deep pink carpet, and two matching cream colored canopy beds. Every inch of the walls and ceiling was covered with posters and pictures. She and Ren never really took things down as they got older. They just put up new things. Shabby Simon Snow chic. When Kath looked up at Levi, his eyes were sparkling and he was biting his bottom lip. She pushed him over and he burst into laughter. This is the cutest thing I've ever seen, he said. She sighed. Okay. No, seriously, I feel like this room should be preserved so that people of the future know what it's like to be a teenage girl in the 21st century. I get it. Oh God, Levi said, still giggling. I can't take it. He started walking back downstairs, and then after a second, he walked back up and re-burst into laughter. Okay, Cass said, walking over to her bed and sitting down against the headboard. Her comforter was pink and green plaid. She had Simon Snow pillowcases. There was a Saniro mobile hanging over her head like a dream catcher. Levi strolled over her bed and sat down in the middle. You look so blindingly cute right now. I feel like I need to I feel like I need to make a pinhole in a piece of paper just to look at you. She rolled her eyes and Levi swung his feet up, pushing them through hers so their legs crossed at the shins. I still can't believe your dad sent me up to your room the first time he met me. All he knows about me is I took you out into a blizzard. He's just like that, Cass said. He's never kept much of a leash. Never? Not even when you were kids? Uh-huh. She took her head. He trusts us. Plus, you saw him. His mind wanders. Well, when you meet my parents, don't expect my mom to let you out of her sight. I'll bet Reagan loved that. Levi's eyes widened. There is no love lost between my mom and Reagan, believe me. Reagan's older sister got pregnant her senior year, and my mom was pretty sure it ran in families. She had her whole prayer circle working on us. When she found out we broke up, she actually raised her hands to heaven. Kath smiled uncomfortably and put a pillow under her lap, picking at the fabric. Does it bother you when I talk about Reagan? He asked. I'm the one who brought her up. Does it? A little, Kath said. Tell me more about your mom. I finally, I finally get a, I finally get you up to a room, and now we're talking about my ex-girlfriend and my mom. Kath smiled down at the pillow. Well, he said, my mom grew up on a ranch. She quilts. She's active in her church. What kind? Baptist. What's her name? Marlies, he said. What's your mom's name? Laura. What's she like? Kath raised her eyebrows and shrugged. She was an artist. I mean, maybe she still is. She and my dad met at an ad agency right out of college. He knocked one of his knees against hers, and Kat sighed, and she didn't want to get married or get pregnant or anything like that. They weren't even dating seriously. She was trying to get a job at Minneapolis or Chicago, but she got pregnant, and I think it ran in her family too. There were generations of pregnancies, so they got married. Kath looked at up Kath looked up at him, and it was a disaster. She didn't want one baby, so two was a nasty surprise. How do you how do you know all that? Did your dad tell you? She told us. She thought we should know who she really was and how she ended up in such a lamentable situation. I guess so that we wouldn't make the same mistakes. What did she expect you to learn? I don't know, Cass said. Stay away from men, maybe just use a condom, or stay away from men who don't know how to work a condom. You're making me appreciate the prayer circle. Kath laughed for half a breath. When did she leave? He asked. He already knew that her mom had left. Kath had told them once in a way that let him know she didn't want to elaborate, but now, when we were 8, she said, did you see it coming? No. Kath looked up at him. I don't think anyone would ever see that coming. I mean, when you're a kid, you don't expect your mom to leave, no matter what, you know? Even if you think she doesn't like you. I'm sure she liked you. She left, Kath said, and she never came back. Who does that? I don't know. Someone who's missing a piece. Kath felt tears in her eyes and tried to blink them away. Do you miss her? Levi asked. No, Kath said quietly. I couldn't care less about her. I miss Ren. Levi pulled his legs back and leaned forward, crawling up Kath's bed until he was sitting next to her. He put his arm around her shoulder and pulled her into his chest. Okay? She nodded and leaned into him hesitantly, like she wasn't sure how she'd fit. He traced circles on her shoulder with his thumb. You know, he said, I keep wanting to say that it's like Simon Snow threw up in here, but it's more like somebody else ate Simon Snow. Like somebody went to an all you care to eat Simon Snow buffet and then threw up in here. Kath laughed. I like it. Never said that I didn't. As long as they were talking, it was easy, and Levi was always talking. He told her about 4-H. What did the H's stand for? Head, Heart, Hands, Health. They don't have 4-H in South. They don't have 4-H in South Omaha. They do, but it stands for Hard Hip Hop. Homie, don't play that. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. You missed out on a lot of competitive rabbit breeding. You raised rabbits? Prize-winning rabbits, he said, and one year, a sow. It's like you grew up on a different planet. Head, heart, hands, health. That's really nice, don't you think? Are there photos of you somewhere with rabbits? And blue ribbons, he said. I might have to make a pinhole camera just to look at them. Are you kidding? I was so cute you'll have to wear special glasses. Oh hey, I just remembered the 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living. For my club, my community, my country, and my world. Kath closed her eyes. Where are those glasses? Then he told her about the state fair. More rabbits, more sows, plus a year of serious brownie making, and he showed her photos of his 4 blonde sisters on his phone. Kath couldn't keep track of their names. They were all from the Bible, Old Testament, Levi said. He had one sister Kath's age and one who was still in high school. Doesn't this creep you out? What, dating someone as young as your little sister? Dating my little sister would creep me out. Damn it. Me personally, with my favorite anime being My Little Sister, can't be this cute. I feel so called out right now. God damn. Anyway, dating my little sister would creep me out. I'm still a teenager. He shrugged. You're legal. She shoved him. Kath, I'm only 2.5 years older than you. College years, she said. That's like a decade. He rolled his eyes. My dad thought you were 30. He pulled back his chin. He did not. Did he really? She giggled. No. Levi saw that he had. Levi saw that she had Simon Snow seen it and insisted that they play. Kath thought she'd cream him, but his memory was insane, and all his questions were about the movies, not the books. Too bad, too bad for you that there aren't any questions about homosexual subtext, Levi said. I want you to make me a blue ribbon when I win this. At midnight, Kath started thinking about her dad downstairs and how he should really be getting some sleep. Are you tired? She asked Levi. Do I get my own tent bed? It's called a canopy, and no, you get your own couch. If I tell my dad you're tired, it'll force him to stop working. Levi nodded. Do you need pajamas or something? I can sleep in my clothes. It's only one night. She found an extra toothbrush for him, dug out a clean sheet, and grabbed one of her pillows. When they got downstairs, the papers had multiplied, but her dad gamely cleared off the couch and kissed Kath on the forehead. She made him promise not to keep working in his bedroom. Don't make me yell at you in front of company. Kath made up the couch, and when Levi got out of the bathroom, his face and the front of his hair damp, she handed him the pillow. He sat it on the couch and grinned at her. Do you need anything else? She asked. He shook his head. Kath took a step backwards, and he caught her hand. He ran her fingers along his palm, pulling away. "Good night," she said. "Good night, sweetheart." Kath woke up at 3, her head too clear and her head beating too fast. She tiptoed downstairs, but she knew they'd still creak. She walked through the kitchen and made sure the stove was turned off, that the back door was locked, that everything was okay. Her dad's door was open. She stood in the doorway until she could hear him breathe. Then she walked as quietly as she could past the couch. The front door was locked. The curtains were drawn. A snowplow was crawling up the street. When she turned around, Levi had raised himself on his elbow and was watching her. He'd taken off his sweater and had a loose white t-shirt. His hair was wild. His lips and eyes were thick with sleep. "Head, heart, hands. What's wrong?" he whispered. Cass shook her head and hurried back upstairs. Levi had to leave before breakfast. He had to get to Starbucks. Jim Flowers, her dad's favorite weatherman, said that the roads were much better, but everybody should take it slow out there. Her dad said he'd drive Kath back to school on Sunday, but Levi looked at the snowed-in Honda and said it was no trouble to come back. "So," her dad said. They were standing on the porch, watching Levi's truck turn the corner. "That's your new boyfriend?" She nodded. "Still dying to move home? Transfer to UNO? Spend your whole life taking care of your mentally unstable father?" Kath pushed past him into the living room. "Breakfast?" It was a good weekend. 5,000 words of carry-on. Fish tacos with radish and shredded cabbage. Only 2 more conversations about Ren, and Sunday afternoon brought Levi back, taking her front steps 2 at a time. The humdrum bounced a small red ball in its hand. Simon had carried that ball everywhere, for at least a year. He'd lost it when he came to Watford. He hadn't needed it anymore. "You're lying," Simon said. "You're not me. You're no part of me. I'm what's left of you," the humdrum said, and Simon would swear his own voice was never so high and so sweet. From Chapter 23, Simon Snow and the Seventh Oak. Copyright 2010 by Gemma T. Leslie. And that is where I am going to take another break and call this a video, and I will see you back on the next one.